The range officer, a neutral Thunmore general, stepped forward to explain the rules. 6 targets, each more challenging. The range officer raised his hand. First target. Stationary at 800 meters. Shooters ready. The 6 Apex Guard soldiers moved to the firing line in perfect formation. Their weapons hummed with power as targeting systems activated. Through their neural links, each shooter saw detailed information displayed directly in their vision. Wind speed, air pressure, target distance, and optimal firing solution. Fire when ready, the range officer announced. 6 plasma bolts shot down the range almost simultaneously. The stationary target, a standard combat dummy with sensors, registered 6 perfect center mass hits. The time from ready to complete was 4 seconds. The crowd applauded politely. It was exactly what everyone expected from the elite unit. Private Park, your turn. Jinho stepped to the firing line. He raised the rifle to his shoulder, feeling its familiar weight settle into place. The iron sights lined up naturally, muscle memory from 10,000 repetitions making the movement effortless. He could see the target in the distance, clear and distinct. He breathed in slowly, let half the breath out, and held. His finger applied steady pressure to the trigger. The rifle cracked, and the recoil pushed against his shoulder. Through the sights, he saw the target register a hit. Center mass. Perfect. He lowered the rifle and worked the bolt action, ejecting the spent cartridge. The brass casing caught the sunlight as it tumbled to the ground. Total time, 7 seconds. Slower than the Apex Guard, but still a perfect score. Champion Theron nodded slightly. Acceptable. But the first target is always easy. The next one will be more revealing. Second target, the range officer called. Moving target at 600 meters. Variable speed. A drone lifted off from the target zone, flying in a programmed pattern that changed speed randomly. The Apex Guard soldiers tracked it with their weapons, their AI systems calculating the lead time needed for each shot. When they fired, all 6 plasma bolts intercepted the drone at different points in its flight path. 6 hits. The crowd applauded louder this time. Moving targets were much harder. Jinho watched the pattern carefully. The drone's movement seemed random, but there was a logic to it. It accelerated in curves and slowed in straight lines. His grandfather had taught him to hunt birds in flight using similar principles. Do not aim where the bird is. Aim where the bird will be. He raised his rifle and followed the drone's movement, not through a scope or computer, but with his eyes and instincts. He saw the pattern complete one cycle and begin to repeat. The drone was about to curve left and accelerate. He let his aim point ahead, adjusted for the speed increase, and fired. The drone registered a hit and dropped to the ground. The crowd erupted in surprised applause. Without a computer, without AI assistance, he had calculated the lead time perfectly. Interesting, Theron said, though his voice carried less certainty now. Third target, partial cover at 900 meters. This target was positioned behind a barrier with only a small section visible. The Apex Guard used their weapons penetration mode, firing plasma bolts that burned through the barrier to hit the target behind it. It was effective but crude, relying on raw power rather than precision. Jinho studied the barrier carefully. It was made of a flexible material that moved slightly in the wind. Every few seconds, the movement created a gap just large enough for a bullet to pass through. He watched for 3 cycles, timing the rhythm. On the 4th cycle, he fired. The bullet threaded through the gap and hit the target cleanly. The crowd's applause was deafening now. Many soldiers were on their feet. Juan was jumping and shouting. Sergeant Minji had tears in her eyes. Champion. Theron's expression had shifted from confidence to concern. His shooters looked at each other uncertainly. They had never faced someone who could match their performance without using any technology. 4th target, the range officer announced, and Jinho could hear the excitement in his voice. Precision shot. Small target at 1,000 meters. The target was only the size of a fist, simulating a headshot on an enemy combatant. The Apex Guard soldiers took their time, using their maximum zoom and stabilization features. 5 hit the target perfectly. 1 missed by a few centimeters when an unexpected wind gust affected the plasma bolt trajectory. Jinho closed his eyes for a moment. He felt the wind on his face, heard it rustling through the range, sensed the air pressure. When he opened his eyes, he understood the wind completely. It was not just blowing from one direction. It was swirling, creating small eddies and currents. His grandfather had taught him to read wind by feel, not by instruments. He aimed, adjusted slightly for the wind pattern he sensed, and fired. The bullet flew true, compensating naturally for the complex air currents. Dead center hit. The crowd went absolutely wild. Soldiers from every species were cheering. This was no longer just a competition. It was a demonstration of something they had never seen before. A human using pure skill to match technology that cost millions of credits. Champion Theron stood rigid, his forearms hanging at his sides. His confidence was completely gone now, replaced by something that looked like shock. "Fifth target," the range officer had to shout over the crowd noise. "Moving target at 1,200 meters in variable wind conditions." This was the hardest standard military shot in the coalition. The combination of distance, movement, and unpredictable wind made it nearly impossible without computational assistance. The Apex Guard soldiers took their time, letting their AI systems run multiple calculations. 4 managed to hit the target. 2 missed despite all their technology. Jinho watched the target through several runs. It was moving fast and the wind was gusting in multiple directions. Any normal shooter would be overwhelmed by the variables, but his grandfather had taught him that chaos has patterns if you know how to see them. He watched for over a minute, which felt like forever with the crowd silent and waiting. Then he saw it. The wind gusts were not random. They followed a cycle based on the range's environmental system. The target's movement was programmed with a pattern that repeated every 23 seconds. He waited for the perfect moment when both patterns aligned. Target position, wind state, his breathing, his heartbeat, everything synchronized. He fired. The bullet traveled for what seemed like an eternity. Then the target registered a hit and the crowd exploded with noise. Soldiers were throwing their helmets in the air, hugging each other, shouting in dozens of languages. The human had done it again. Champion Theron walked slowly to the firing line. He removed his helmet, something Velkari only did as a sign of deep respect. "I was wrong. Completely and totally wrong. You are not lucky. You are not primitive. You are something I have never encountered before. A warrior who has become one with his weapon." "Thank you," Jinho said quietly. "There is still 1 target remaining," Theron continued. "The judge's choice. I will not lie to you, human. We prepared something special for this final challenge, something we believed would be impossible for anyone without advanced technology." The range officer stepped forward. "Final target. Judge's choice. 6 drones will launch simultaneously using krill pattern cloaking technology. They will move in random patterns at various distances between 400 and 1,400 meters. The challenge is to identify and hit all 6 targets within 90 seconds. The Apex Guard will shoot as a team. Private Park must shoot alone." A murmur ran through the crowd. This was beyond difficult. This was meant to be impossible. The Apex Guard soldiers activated every sensor they had. Thermal scanners, electromagnetic detectors, motion trackers, everything. The drones launched and became invisible. The soldiers began firing at locations their computers indicated, working systematically through the search area. They found 4 drones quickly. The thermal signatures were faint but detectable with their advanced equipment. They managed to hit 3 of them before time ran out. 1 hit every 30 seconds. It was impressive work that would have succeeded in most combat situations. "Private Park, you have 90 seconds starting now." Jinho did not raise his rifle. He stood at the firing line and simply observed, just as he had done countless times hunting in the mountains. He was not looking for electronic signatures or heat blooms. He was looking for things that should not be there. 30 seconds passed. The crowd grew restless. Why was he not shooting? Was he giving up? Had he finally met a challenge he could not overcome? But Jinho was working. His eyes tracked tiny inconsistencies in the air. His ears picked up the faint whine of drone motors that operated at frequencies most species could not hear. His instincts, honed by years of hunting the most elusive prey on Earth, were processing thousands of tiny details simultaneously. Suddenly, at 25 seconds remaining, he smiled. He had all 6. He raised his rifle and fired. A drone 670 meters out dropped from the sky, its cloaking failing. "Work the bolt." "Fire again." Another drone at 520 meters fell. The crowd gasped. How was he finding them? Third shot. He aimed at what appeared to be empty air 1,340 meters away, leading for a target no one else could see. 8 seconds after he fired, a drone fell at that exact location. He had calculated for bullet travel time on a moving target no one could detect. Fourth shot. The gap cycled open and closed every few seconds to prevent overheating. The cleanup took hours. Medical teams treated the wounded while combat engineers secured the station and checked for any remaining krill hiding in the ventilation systems. Jinho sat in the same spot where he had been when the battle ended, methodically cleaning every part of his rifle. Other soldiers walked past him, and many paused to stare or nod respectfully. Lieutenant Gorn was the first officer to approach. The tall Velkari removed his helmet and sat down on a cargo crate next to where Jinho was working. His crystalline skin reflected the emergency lighting in strange patterns. "Private Park," he began, then stopped as if searching for the right words. "I owe you my life. That krill soldier was 3 seconds from putting a blade in my back. My scanners showed nothing. My combat computer detected nothing. But you saw him." "I saw a shadow that moved wrong, sir," Jinho said, not looking up from his work. He was running a clean patch through the rifle's barrel. Shadows do not usually separate from their light source like that. "A shadow," Gorn repeated slowly. "Your weapon has no thermal imaging, no motion tracking, no electronic assistance of any kind. How did you make those shots?" Jinho paused his cleaning and looked at the lieutenant directly. "My grandfather taught me to hunt in the mountains back on Earth. We hunted deer. They are small animals with excellent hearing and good instincts. They can hear your breathing from very far away. They can sense when you are watching them. To hunt them successfully, you must become part of the mountain. You cannot rely on technology because the deer do not care about technology. You must use your eyes, your ears, your instincts. But these were not animals. These were trained soldiers with advanced technology. Yes, sir, but they were still living beings trying to hide. And nothing can hide perfectly. There are always signs. The air moves differently. Light bends slightly. Dust patterns shift. Sounds echo in ways that do not match empty space. My rifle does not have computers because I am the computer. It does not have sensors because I am the sensor." Gorn was quiet for a long time, processing this information. Finally, he spoke again. "We have been fighting with the same tactics for decades. Better weapons, faster scanners, stronger shields. But you are fighting differently. You are not trying to out-technology the enemy. You are outthinking them." "I am just using what I was taught, sir." More soldiers began to gather around. Lisa, the female Velkari who had mocked his rifle in the armory, approached cautiously. Her forearms hung at her sides in a posture that Jinho had learned meant uncertainty or shame in her species. "Private Park," she said, her voice much quieter than before. "I made fun of your weapon. I called you primitive. I was completely wrong and I apologize. I never saw 5 of the 6 targets you hit. My scanners showed nothing. Yet you saw them all. How is this possible?" Jinho finished cleaning his rifle and began reassembling it. The mechanical clicks of each part fitting into place were soothing and familiar. "Your scanners are very good. Much better than anything humans have. But they work by detecting specific things. Heat, movement, electromagnetic signatures. The krill know this, so they design their cloaking to hide those specific things. But they cannot hide everything. A cloaked soldier still displaces air when they move. They still block light, creating shadows. They still make sounds. They still have mass and presence." He held up his rifle, now fully assembled. "This weapon is 800 years old in design. It has no power cells to run out, no computer to be jammed, no scanner to be fooled. It is just metal and wood and my ability to aim it. And I aim it not at heat signatures or motion alerts. I aim it at living targets that I see with my eyes and understand with my instincts." Sergeant Minji Choi had been listening from nearby. She stepped forward and addressed the gathered alien soldiers. "My people, humans, we evolved differently than most of you. We were not the strongest or fastest animals on our planet. We did not have armor or claws or poison. What we had was endurance and intelligence. We hunted by tracking prey for days, reading tiny signs that other predators missed. We learned to see patterns and make predictions. Our brains developed to do very complex calculations without thinking about it. When Jinho looks at a battlefield, he is not just seeing what is there. He is seeing what should be there and noticing when something is different," Juan added from the back of the group. "In basic training, our human instructors taught us something. They said technology is a tool, but it can also become a weakness if you depend on it too much. If your computer tells you there is nothing there, you believe it. But Jinho does not have a computer to lie to him. He only has his eyes, and his eyes saw the truth." Vexthor spoke up, his deep voice rumbling. "I have fought beside warriors from 20 different species. I have seen incredible acts of courage and skill, but I have never seen anyone do what you did today, human. 6 targets that were invisible to our best equipment, and you found them all. The last shot, the one that killed the commander that should have been impossible. The distance, the wind, the small gap in the shield that opened and closed. How did you calculate all of that? Jinho thought about how to explain it. I did not calculate it the way a computer would. I watched the pattern. I felt the wind on my face. I listened to how it moved through the station. I counted the rhythm of the shield cycling, and then I just knew when to shoot. It is hard to put into words. It is like when you walk, you do not think about each step. Your body just knows how to balance and move. My shooting is like that. My grandfather trained me for so many years that I do not think about the math anymore. I just understand it naturally. Lieutenant Gorn stood up. Private Park, I am officially requesting that you be designated as the platoon marksman with field autonomy. Your methods are unusual, but they are devastatingly effective. Command needs to know about this. I am just a soldier doing my job, sir, Jinho said. No, Gorn replied firmly. You are much more than that. You have shown us that we have become too dependent on our technology. We have forgotten to use our natural abilities. Every species in the coalition has unique traits. Humans bring something we did not fully appreciate until, today, the group began to disperse as orders came through to prepare for transport back to the Harmony's edge. Jinho packed his rifle carefully in its case, making sure every clasp was secure. As he worked, he thought about his grandfather's lessons. The old man had been a hunter in the mountains for 60 years before teaching Jinho. He had never used electronic scopes or laser rangefinders. He had refused to use anything except iron sights and his own judgment. At first, young Jinho had thought his grandfather was just being stubborn and old-fashioned. But over the years, he had learned that there was deep wisdom in the old ways. Technology can fail you, his grandfather had said one cold morning while they waited for deer in the snow. Batteries die. Electronics break. Computers make mistakes. But your eyes, your ears, your instincts, these are always with you. These cannot be jammed or hacked or run out of power. Train them well, and they will never betray you. On the transport back to the ship, Jinho sat next to a window and looked out at the stars. Earth was far away, just one planet among billions. He had left the mountains and joined a military that spanned entire galaxies. He was surrounded by aliens with advanced technology and centuries of experience. But his grandfather's old rifle had proven itself today. The old ways still had power. Juan sat down beside him. Everyone is talking about you. The story is spreading through the whole battalion. The human with the antique rifle who sees invisible enemies. I just did what I was trained to do, Jinho said. No, man. You did something special. You showed them that humans are not just weak primitives trying to catch up. We bring our own strengths to this alliance. Juan paused, then continued. I was wrong to tell you to give up your rifle. I am sorry. I was thinking like them, believing newer was always better. You reminded me that our way has value too. Jinho nodded but did not say anything. Praise made him uncomfortable. His grandfather had taught him to be humble, to let his actions speak rather than his words. The Harmony's edge came into view, a massive ship that looked like a small city floating in space. As they docked, Jinho could see through the windows that a large crowd had gathered in the hangar bay. Word of what had happened had already spread through the ship. When 3rd Platoon exited the transport, they were met with cheers from soldiers of every species. Jinho tried to stay in the back, but Lieutenant Gorn pulled him forward. This is Private Jinho Park, Gorn announced to the crowd. Today he saved my life and helped turn an impossible battle into a victory. He did it with skill, courage, and a weapon that most of us considered worthless. We have learned an important lesson today about respecting different methods and different traditions. The crowd cheered again. Jinho stood uncomfortably in the attention, his rifle case held in front of him like a shield. He caught sight of Sergeant Minji in the crowd. She was smiling proudly and gave him a thumbs up, a human gesture of approval. Later, in his quarters, Jinho took out the small notebook he kept in his pocket. He wrote carefully in Korean, knowing his grandfather would read these words eventually when they were sent back to Earth. Grandfather, today I used E. The briefing room was crowded with soldiers from 3rd Platoon. Jinho sat in the back row, his rifle case on his lap, listening as Lieutenant Gorn explained the mission. A holographic display showed a large asteroid with mining facilities built into its surface. This is Outpost Tertia 7, the lieutenant said. It was a legitimate mining operation until the Krill pirates took it over 3 weeks ago. Intelligence reports indicate 40 to 50 hostiles. They are using the station to store stolen goods and plan raids on nearby shipping lanes. The hologram zoomed in to show 3 entry points marked in red. We will breach simultaneously at these locations. First platoon takes the north entrance. Second platoon takes the south. We take the east. Our objective is to clear the station and capture or eliminate all hostile forces. A hand raised from the front row. It was Lisa, the female Valkyrie who had mocked Jinho's rifle. What about their cloaking technology? The Krill are known for their stealth capabilities. Our thermal scanners and motion detectors should handle it, Gorn replied. Stay alert and work in pairs. Do not advance alone. Any questions? Silence filled the room. Jinho wanted to ask about backup plans if the scanners failed, but he kept quiet. He was already the subject of enough jokes. After the briefing ended, Sergeant Minji Choi approached him. She was a human from 2nd Platoon who had been with the unit for over a year. Her plasma rifle hung across her back, well-maintained and customized with extra power cells. Jinho, she said quietly, sitting beside him, I heard about your rifle. I am not here to mock you. I am here to help. Please requisition a plasma weapon for this mission. The Krill are dangerous. Their cloaking is not like anything you faced in training. I appreciate your concern, Jinho said, but I will use my own weapon. Minji looked at him for a long moment, then sighed. I was stubborn too when I first arrived. I thought I could do everything the human way. But I learned that sometimes you need to adapt. Just think about it, okay? She left, and Jinho remained in the empty briefing room staring at the hologram of the outpost. His grandfather's voice came to him again. When you hunt the deer, you do not announce yourself. You become part of the mountain. You watch, you wait, you see what others miss. The deployment happened fast. Jinho and the rest of 3rd Platoon loaded into drop pods, cramped metal tubes that would shoot them down to the asteroid's surface. He was strapped in next to Juan, who wore full combat armor and carried a standard-issue plasma rifle. Last chance to grab a real gun, Juan muttered, but there was no meanness in his voice. Just worry? Jinho checked his rifle one more time and loaded 5 rounds into the internal magazine. The mechanical action of the bolt made a satisfying click. This is a real gun. The drop pod launched and gravity tried to crush them into their seats.
Jinho closed his eyes and focused on breathing steadily.
The descent took 40 seconds that felt like hours. Then the pod hit the asteroid's surface with a violent crash and the doors blew open. 3rd Platoon poured out into the mining station's east corridor. The interior was dark except for emergency lighting that cast everything in red shadows. The air smelled like metal and recycled oxygen. Jinho took his position near the back of the formation as he had been ordered. He was rear support, considered too inexperienced and poorly equipped for the front lines. Lieutenant Gorn's voice came through their communication devices. All units advance carefully. Watch your scanners. They moved forward in a tight formation. The Valkyrie and Thunmore soldiers led the way, their weapons raised and their scanners active. Jinho followed, his rifle ready but not raised. He was watching everything, looking for the small details that electronics might miss. The first shots came without warning. Energy blasts lit up the corridor from positions that should have been empty. A Thunmore soldier went down, his armor smoking. More fire came from above, below, from angles that should have been impossible. Contact. Multiple hostiles, Gorn shouted. They are everywhere. The Krill pirates were using their cloaking technology better than anyone had expected. They would appear for a split-second fire, then vanish again. The Coalition soldiers fired back, but most of their shots hit empty air. The thermal scanners were showing nothing useful. The motion detectors were going crazy, triggering on everything and nothing at once. They are jamming our targeting systems, someone yelled. More soldiers went down. The neat formation broke apart as everyone scrambled for cover behind cargo containers and structural supports. Jinho ducked behind a metal crate next to Juan, who was firing his plasma rifle at shadows. This is bad, Juan shouted over the noise of battle. There are way more than 50 of them. Jinho did not respond. He was watching the chaos with different eyes. His grandfather had taught him to hunt deer that could hear a leaf falling from 50 meters away. Those deer had been masters of stealth, moving through the forest like ghosts, but they could not be completely invisible. Nothing could, he noticed things. Small things. The dust in the air moved slightly where there was no breeze. The shadows on the wall showed an outline that did not quite match the empty space. A faint shimmer like heat rising from pavement appeared and disappeared in a corner. "Jinho, get your head down." Juan pulled him lower as energy blasts scorched the top of their crate. But Jinho had seen something. Behind Lieutenant Gorn's position, about 40 meters away through a connecting corridor, there was a shadow that was too dark. It moved wrong, separated from the light source. A Krill soldier was creeping up on the lieutenant, completely cloaked and invisible to everyone's scanners. Jinho did not think. He raised his rifle, aimed carefully at the shadow, and exhaled slowly. His finger squeezed the trigger steadily, not jerking, just constant pressure until the rifle fired. The mechanical crack was loud and distinct, completely different from the energy weapon's hissing sounds. The shadow became a body. The Krill soldier appeared suddenly as its cloaking device failed. A bullet hole in its chest. It fell forward dead before it hit the ground. The creature had been seconds away from killing Lieutenant Gorn. For a moment, everyone stopped shooting. The sudden appearance of a dead Krill where their sensors showed nothing made them all pause in confusion. Lieutenant Gorn turned and looked at his saved life, then back at Jinho. Even through his helmet, Jinho could see the shock on the Velkari's face. "How did you see that?" "It made a shadow, sir," Jinho said simply, already working the bolt action to chamber another round. There was no time for more questions. The Krill realized one of their soldiers had been killed and concentrated their fire on 3rd Platoon's position. Jinho worked his bolt action and scanned the battlefield with new focus. He was not looking for heat signatures or motion triggers. He was looking for the small mistakes that living beings made when they tried to hide. There. In the rafters above, about 70 meters up, the ceiling had maintenance lights casting a grid pattern. One section of the grid was broken by something that his eyes registered but the computers ignored. A rifle barrel just slightly out of alignment with the shadows around it. Jinho aimed high, adjusted for the distance and the slight gravity difference on the asteroid, and fired. The bolt action cycled smoothly. Another Krill appeared, this one falling from the rafters with a rifle still clutched in its hands. "2," Jinho said quietly to himself, chambering another round. Juan stared at him. "How are you doing that?" "They cannot be perfectly invisible," Jinho replied. "Nothing can. You just have to look for what does not belong." A scraping sound came from a ventilation shaft to their left. It was quiet, almost lost in the battle noise, but Jinho's ears caught it. He estimated the distance by the echo, judged where a person-sized target would be inside the shaft, and fired through the metal panel. The panel rang like a bell, and moments later a Krill body slid out of the shaft opening. Armor smoking. 3, he counted. Lieutenant Gorn's voice came through the communication device, stronger now. "All units, listen. Follow Private Park's targeting. When he calls out a position, fire on it immediately." Jinho felt the pressure of that order, but his training took over. He called out directions in a calm, clear voice. "Corridor junction, right side, low position." The platoon fired where he indicated, and a Krill that had been setting up a heavy weapon died before it could pull the trigger. The battle began to shift. With Jinho painting targets that were invisible to sensors, the coalition soldiers could actually fight back effectively. The Krill's advantage was disappearing. Jinho saw his chance for the 4th shot. 2 Krill soldiers were trying to flank around a blind corner, their positions given away only by a faint reflection in a polished metal surface nearby. The reflection showed just a shimmer, but it was enough. He fired once, worked the bolt fast, and fired again. The first bullet passed through one Krill and wounded the second. Both appeared as their cloaking failed. 4 and 5, he breathed. The Krill leadership realized something had changed. A figure appeared briefly in a shielded command post far down the main corridor. Jinho caught the glimpse and estimated the distance at over 100 meters. The Krill commander was trying to coordinate the defense, speaking into a communication device. Jinho could see that the shield generator created a small gap where a communications array extended through it. 2 weeks had passed since the mission on Outpost Tertia 7, life aboard the Harmonies. Edge had changed dramatically for Jinho. Soldiers from different species would stop him in the corridors to ask questions about his shooting technique. Some asked if he could teach them. Others just wanted to see the famous rifle that had accomplished impossible shots. Jinho handled the attention as quietly as he could. He still spent most of his free time in the armory, maintaining his weapon and practicing his breathing exercises. His grandfather had always said that shooting was 90% mental preparation and only 10% pulling the trigger. The battalion had been granted shore leave on Karis Prime, a training world where the Coalition maintained massive facilities for military exercises. The planet had every kind of terrain imaginable, from frozen tundra to burning deserts, all designed to prepare soldiers for any combat situation. Jinho was in the base cantina, eating a simple meal of rice and vegetables that the ship's food processors had created based on Korean recipes in their database. The food was not quite right, but it was close enough to remind him of home. Juan sat across from him talking about the shore leave activities. "They have a shooting range here that is supposed to be incredible," Juan said. 5,000 meters long with moving targets and environmental controls. "We should check it out." Before Jinho could respond, the cantina's noise level dropped suddenly. He looked up to see why everyone had gone quiet. A group of Velkari soldiers had entered, but these were different from the regular troops. Their armor was black instead of the standard blue, and they moved with absolute confidence. Each one carried weapons that looked even more advanced than normal Coalition equipment. "Apex Guard," Juan whispered. "Elite Special Forces, the best of the best." The Apex Guard soldiers walked through the cantina, and other soldiers literally moved out of their way. At the front of the group was a massive Velkari whose armor had golden markings. This had to be their leader. They stopped at a table where several officers from the Harmony's Edge were sitting, including Lieutenant Gorn. Jinho could not hear the conversation, but he saw Gorn gesture in his direction. The Apex Guard leader turned to look at Jinho, studying him for a long moment before turning back to continue talking. Sergeant Minji appeared at their table, sliding into the seat next to Jinho. Her expression was troubled. "Do you know what they are talking about?" "No," Jinho said. "The Apex Guard commander's name is Champion Theron. He has been hearing the stories about you. Apparently, he does not believe them. He thinks the reports were exaggerated, that you just got lucky fighting against panicked pirates." "Maybe he is right," Jinho said, taking another bite of his food. "Maybe I did get lucky." "Do not say that," Minji said firmly. "I was there for part of that fight. I saw what you did. That was not luck. That was pure skill." Juan leaned forward. "Why does it matter what he thinks? He is with the Apex Guard. We are regular infantry. Our paths will never cross." Minji shook her head. "You do not understand how the Apex Guard works. They have a reputation to maintain. They are supposed to be untouchable, the absolute best soldiers in the entire Coalition. The idea that a regular private with an antique weapon did something they could not do, it challenges their status." The conversation at the officers' table was getting louder. Lieutenant Gorn's voice rose above the background noise. "My report was accurate. Private Park made shots that should have been impossible. 6 targets, all cloaked, all at significant distances." Champion Theron's reply carried across the room. "I am not questioning your honesty, Lieutenant. I am questioning your judgment. This human got lucky against disorganized criminals. My soldiers eliminate threats before they even know we exist. There is no comparison." Jinho continued eating, trying to ignore the conversation. He did not want any conflict with the elite soldiers. He just wanted to do his job and make his grandfather proud. But Lieutenant Gorn was not backing down. "Then perhaps a demonstration is in order. Let your best marksman face Private Park in a formal competition. We will see who is truly skilled and who just has expensive equipment." The cantina went completely silent. A formal challenge between units was rare and serious. It would be watched by everyone on the base, and the results would be remembered for years. Champion Theron stood up, his massive frame towering over the table. "Very well. I accept on behalf of the Apex Guard. 6 targets progressively more difficult. My 6 best shooters against your 1 human, tomorrow at noon on the long-range facility. Will that be acceptable?" "It will," Gorn said. Jinho felt Minji's hand grip his shoulder. "You just got volunteered for something big." Later that evening, Jinho was called to Lieutenant Gorn's office. The Velkari officer looked tired but determined. "Private Park, I apologize for putting you in this position without asking. But Champion Theron was insulting everything we accomplished on that mission. He was insulting you personally, even if indirectly." "I understand, sir, but I am not sure I should compete against the Apex Guard. They have trained for many more years than I have. Their weapons are superior. Their weapons are only tools, Gorn said. What matters is the person using them. You have proven you have exceptional skill. But this is about more than just you now. This is about every human in the coalition. We are still the newest species, still trying to prove we belong here. If you lose, people will say it confirms that humans are inferior. If you win, you show that we bring unique value to this alliance. Jinho sat down heavily. That is a lot of pressure, sir. I know. And if you truly want to decline, I will find a way to cancel the competition. I will not force you to do this. Jinho thought about his grandfather. The old man had once told him a story about a hunting competition in their village when he was young. He had been challenged by a hunter who used the newest equipment and mocked his simple rifle. His grandfather had accepted the challenge not for glory, but to prove that skill mattered more than equipment. I will do it, sir, Jinho said quietly, but not for pride. For my friends who believe in me. Gorn nodded. That is the right reason. Get some rest. Tomorrow will be difficult. That night, Jinho could not sleep. He lay in his bunk staring at the ceiling, thinking about what the next day would bring. Finally, he got up and went to the armory. The lights were dim and he was alone with his rifle. He disassembled it completely and examined every part under the light. Everything was perfect as always. His grandfather had built this rifle to last generations, and it had been maintained with love and care for decades. The wooden stock was smooth from thousands of hours of handling. The metal was dark and flawless. The bore was clean and precise. You have never failed me, Jinho whispered to the rifle. Tomorrow I need you to be perfect one more time. He spent 2 hours going through his pre-shooting routine. Breathing exercises to calm his heart rate. Mental visualization of perfect shots. Reviewing his grandfather's teachings about patience, focus, and trusting his instincts. When he finally returned to his bunk, the sun was starting to rise over Karis Prime. He slept for 3 hours and woke feeling centered and ready. The shooting range was enormous. Jinho had never seen anything like it. The facility stretched for miles into the distance with target zones at various ranges and elevation levels. Environmental controls could simulate any weather condition. Holographic obstacles could be generated anywhere. It was the most advanced training facility in the entire coalition. Hundreds of soldiers had gathered to watch. The news of the competition had spread fast, and now there were not just humans and Velkari present, but Thunmor, Krell, Zerath, and dozens of other species. Everyone wanted to see if the stories about the human with the antique rifle were true. Champion Theron stood at the firing line with his 6 shooters. Each one carried the latest Mark VII plasma rifles with full targeting suites, AI-assisted wind calculation, and stabilization fields. Their armor was connected to the weapons through neural links, creating a perfect interface between soldier and gun. Jinho walked to his position, carrying only his leather case and a small box of ammunition. He wore standard infantry armor with no special modifications. When he opened the case and removed his rifle, some of the watching soldiers gasped. They had heard about the weapon, but seeing it in person made the challenge seem even more impossible. Champion Theron approached, his forearms crossed in what might have been respect or skepticism. Human, I want you to know that I respect your service. You fought bravely against the Krill, but what you are attempting today is different. My soldiers are the best in the coalition. They have trained since childhood. Do not feel ashamed when you lose. I will do my best, Jinho said simply. Your weapon is impressive as a historical artifact. Theron continued, looking at the rifle, but it cannot compete with modern technology. You have iron sights while we have computer-enhanced targeting. You have single shots while we have rapid-fire capability. You have wooden stock while we have stabilization fields. The outcome of this competition is already determined. Perhaps, Jinho said, but my grandfather had a saying. He said the weapon does not make the warrior. The warrior makes the weapon worthy. Champion Theron stared at him for a moment, then returned to his position. The transport shuttle's doors hissed open, and Jinho Park stepped onto the deck of the Harmony's Edge with his old leather case clutched tightly in both hands. The military cruiser was massive, stretching for miles in every direction, filled with soldiers from dozens of alien species. Jinho had never seen anything like it back home in the mountains of Korea. He was 23 years old, and this was his first real assignment. Earth had joined the Galactic Coalition only 15 years ago, and every human had to serve 2 years in the mixed species military. Jinho had completed his basic training 3 months ago, and now he was here, surrounded by aliens who towered over him and carried weapons that looked like they belonged in science fiction movies. A tall figure approached him. The alien had 4 arms, crystalline blue skin that sparkled under the ship's lights, and stood nearly 8 feet tall. This was a Velkari, one of the warrior species that made up most of the Coalition military. Private Park? The Velkari's voice rumbled through a translator device on his chest. Yes, sir, Jinho replied, standing straight. I am Squad Leader Taven. Follow me to the armory. You will register your equipment and meet your platoon. The armory was enormous, filled with rows of gleaming plasma rifles, energy weapons, and advanced combat gear that hummed with power. Soldiers of various species moved through the space, checking their equipment and talking in different languages that the translator struggled to keep up with. Jinho felt very small and very out of place. Set your case on the table and open it for inspection, Taven ordered. Jinho placed the worn leather case on the metal table. The surface was scratched and faded, held together with old brass clasps that his grandfather had maintained for decades. Around him, other soldiers began to gather, curious about the new human arrival. He opened the case slowly. Inside, nestled in faded green foam, was his rifle. It was a bolt-action .308 Winchester with a wooden stock that his grandfather had carved by hand. The metal was dark and well-oiled, and the iron sights gleamed from years of careful maintenance. There was no computer screen, no glowing energy cells, no targeting system. Just wood, metal, and precision engineering from 800 years ago. The armory fell completely silent. Then someone laughed. It was a sharp barking sound that came from a Thunmore, one of the reptilian soldiers with heavy armor plates covering their body. Others joined in quickly. Is that a museum piece? The Thunmore called out. His name tag read Vexthor. Did you bring that from a history display? A female Velkari named Lysa stepped closer, her 4 arms crossed. Do humans still hunt with throwing sticks too? Maybe he has a spear in his other bag. More laughter echoed through the armory. Even Juan Kim, another human who had been with the unit for 6 months, shook his head and looked away in embarrassment. Jinho felt his face grow warm, but he kept his expression calm. Squad Leader Taven examined the rifle with what might have been confusion. Private Park, this weapon is not standard issue. Where are your energy cells, your targeting computer, your thermal scope? It does not need those things, sir, Jinho said quietly. It uses bullets. The sights are iron. I aim with my eyes. Another wave of laughter rippled through the gathered soldiers. Vexthor slapped his armored leg. He aims with his eyes, like a primitive. This is wonderful. Lieutenant Gorn entered the armory, drawn by the noise. He was a Velkari officer with silver crystalline skin that marked his rank and experience. What is the disturbance? Taven gestured at the rifle. The new human brought an antique weapon, sir. I am uncertain if it meets combat readiness standards. Lieutenant Gorn approached the table and studied the rifle for a long moment. His expression was hard to read, but Jinho thought he saw disappointment in the alien's eyes. Private Park, this is a frontline combat unit. We face enemies with advanced technology and superior numbers. I cannot have dead weight on my missions. I will not be dead weight, sir, Jinho said, meeting the lieutenant's gaze. Your weapon has no shields, no rapid fire capability, and no electronic targeting. You will be at a severe disadvantage. I understand, sir, but this is what I trained with. This is what I know. Gorn was silent for a moment, then nodded slowly. Very well. You may keep your weapon, but if you become a liability, you will be reassigned to supply duties. Am I clear? Yes, sir. The lieutenant left and the crowd began to disperse, still chuckling and making jokes. Vexthor paused beside Jinho's table. Try not to die too quickly, human. It would be sad to lose our entertainment so soon. Only Juan remained behind after the others left. He sat on the edge of the table and sighed. Man, why did you bring that? They have modern weapons here, free issue, You could have taken a plasma rifle. This rifle belonged to my grandfather, Jinho said, carefully removing it from the case. He taught me to shoot in the mountains. He said technology makes you dependent, but skill makes you dangerous. Your grandfather never fought in space against aliens with cloaking devices, Juan pointed out. Look, I am not trying to be mean. I am trying to help you survive. These aliens have been fighting wars for centuries. Their weapons are better. Their training is better. We are the new species here, and we have to prove ourselves. I understand, Jinho said. He began cleaning the rifle with a soft cloth, checking every part with practiced movements. But this is how I will prove myself. Not with their weapons, with mine. Juan watched him work for a moment, then shook his head again. I hope you know what you are doing. 3rd Platoon ships out in 2 days. We are hitting a pirate base. Real combat, not training exercises. Please tell me you at least shot well in basic training. I scored perfect on every marksmanship test, Jinho said simply. Training ranges are one thing, combat is different. Juan stood up. Get some rest, and think about requisitioning a real weapon before we deploy. Pride is not worth dying for. After Juan left, Jinho continued his work in the empty armory. He disassembled the rifle completely, checking each part, cleaning and oiling every surface. His hands moved with the confidence of someone who had done this thousands of times. His grandfather's voice echoed in his memory. A rifle is not just a tool, Jinho. It is a partner. You must know it better than you know yourself. Trust it, care for it, and it will never fail you. The mountain does not care about fancy technology. The deer does not wait for your computer to lock on. You must become one with the weapon, and then nothing can hide from you. Those lessons had been learned in the cold mountains of Gangwon province, tracking deer through snow and fog, making shots that required patience and perfect timing. The targets had been small and fast, the conditions harsh, and there had been no computer to help him calculate wind or distance. Just his eyes, his instincts, and his grandfather's teachings. Jinho reassembled the rifle and held it up to the light, checking the barrel's alignment one last time. Around him, the advanced weapons of the coalition hummed and glowed with power. His rifle made no sound. It held no light. But in his hands, it felt right. He placed it back in the case and closed the clasps. Let them laugh. Let them mock. In 2 days, they would see what an antique rifle could do in the right hands. He did not need their technology. He had something better. He had skill, patience, and the lessons of a grandfather who had never missed a shot that mattered. Jinho picked up his case and walked to his assigned quarters. Tomorrow he would meet the rest of 3rd Platoon. Tomorrow he would prepare for his first real mission, and when the time came he would show them all that the old ways still had power.